Voices amongst the static. A glitch in the simulation. A broadcast with no origin. You have found the Phenomenauts podcast. Hello, you energetic cluster of bubbling mitochondria. You have tuned into the Phenomenauts, a bi-monthly podcast where we look at the weird, wonderful, and mysterious happenstances of this and occasionally other universes. Your hosts on this wild ride are myself, D, the amazing Amber,
hey,
and the effervescent Oscar.
Hoi hoi.
Don't forget, we're on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and Transistor, so please give us a like, follow, share, comment, download, whatever's easiest. We just love hearing from you fine folks. Alrighty. Admin and shameless self-plugs out the way. How's everybody doing?
well, I woke up about an hour ago, so that's pretty descriptive of my day so far.
Fair. And yourself, Oscar?
I've been obsessing over this subject I'm about to speak about later in the episode.
Perfect.
I've not slept. I've closed all the curtains. There's writing all over the walls.
Can confirm not true, but I have seen you hunched over a PC all day, so that I'll give you.
I've thought about it.
There was definitely moments where it was like a Hangover-esque, where I could see multiple bits of thoughts just floating above you in a sort of like strange cacophony.
How about you, Dee?
I, this week, have been attempting to animate my digital homunculus, as I keep calling it. Because I decided that as part of my portfolio, I would make an avatar of my face and animate that, and it has taken me a week, and it does look pretty banging. I'm pretty proud, but it has taken a week, and I am almost a bit sick of looking at my own face. But the weekend's here now, so that's something.
Well, that's cool to get creative in that way. So,
Oh yeah,
nice.
definitely. It's been, to be fair, not to bang on about it too much, it's been really nice because I ended up having a few little sort of intervals where I'm like, right, I'm gonna research someone else's style and see how they did this, and then I'll look at some tutorials, and then there's an artist who does it this particular way, so I'll look at some of his work and try and decode how he did it. So it's been a real nice exercise for the mind, if you like.
I think I know which artist you're talking about as well.
Stanley Chow at all?
Yes.
Yeah, very famous. Good chance all three of us will have seen his work around town.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very famous vector portrait artist.
A very cool style.
Yeah, funnily enough, I actually studied him in my old degree course. So that's what kind of inspired me to go back and try and look at his technique a bit more.
Yeah.
But that's me done rambling. We've all talked about how we are. Let me spin the wheel of speak and get us started.
Let's do this.
Woo.
Well, Oscar, you're first up after all that hype.
Excellent. Okay, so I've got 2 words for you two.
Okay.
The first word is ghost.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
The second word is rockets.
Okay.
So, ghost rockets, also known as Scandinavian ghost rockets, are unidentified flying objects that were sighted in 1946 over Sweden and various other countries. The first reported sighting was made on February 26th, 1946. And after that, over 2,000 sightings were logged between May and December of 1946, with 200 of those sightings verified with radar returns. So we know there was something. But what?
Ooh.
So initial investigations concluded that some of the sightings were probably just meteors, as you can see from Sweden, the annual Perseid meteor shower, which occurs between mid-July to sort of mid-August over there. But the thing is, a lot of the sightings that were reported, a majority of them, actually were seen outside of the meteor shower's sort of annual length.
Okay. Interested.
Reported behaviours are as follows. Fast-moving objects, slow-moving objects, producing a hissing or rumbling sound, being completely silent, leaving no exhaust trails, high manoeuvrability, flying horizontally, flying in formation, with or without wings on various sightings, and they are either rocket, missile, or cigar-shaped.
Well.
What are your thoughts so far?
Well, just from that, from the description, I guess one thing I think of is whenever we talk about, UFOs like this, I always try to, think of comparisons to things that would fit that profile. So I'm just like, well, maybe some of them are birds, maybe some of them are rockets, maybe some of them are like, bats. I don't know. But the fact that it has such specific criteria does make me think that, oh well, maybe there is going to be some stuff in here that isn't just, I think there's going to be some interesting stuff.
I do appreciate that you said they had radar detection as well. Because it's very easy to just say, I saw a light in the sky, and then there just to be no corroborative evidence, but radar.
Apologies, I must have missed that bit. If they're radar checking, that's pretty immense, actually. That in my very humble opinion, I think that adds like Amber said, another layer of validity to it.
So, the crashes of these unidentified flying objects were not actually that uncommon, and most documented ones were recorded of them crashing into lakes and such. And although several dives were conducted by the Swedish military, no debris was ever found, only the occasional crater and maybe some damaged aquatic plants. The best known of these crashes occurred on July 19th, 1946. And I'm going to try and pronounce a couple of Swedish words in this episode. I've done my best to, practice, but please forgive me. In 1946, July 19th, a crash occurred into Lake Källned in Sweden, and it was described as a grey rocket shape. One of the witnesses claimed to hear a thunderclap, possibly the object exploding. But after 3 weeks of searching, the Swedish military reported finding nothing. Following the investigation, the Swedish Air Force officer who led the search, Carl-Gösta Bartol, submitted a report stating there are many indications that the Källned object disintegrated itself. The object was probably manufactured in a lightweight material, possibly a kind of magnesium alloy that would disintegrate easily and not give indications on our instruments. When Bartol was later interviewed in 1984 by Swedish researcher Claes Svahn, he suggested the object largely disintegrated in flight and insisted that, quote, what people saw were real, they were physical objects, end quote.
Wow.
So there's something, I'm not saying what it is, but there is at least some evidence that seems to imply something is here.
Having the military sort of weigh in on it as well. Pretty big.
On October 10th, 1946, Swedish defence staff publicly stated most observations are vague and must be treated sceptically. In some cases, however, clear, unambiguous observations have been made that cannot be explained by natural phenomena, Swedish aircraft, or imagination of as a part of the observer. So they're sort of saying, we know something's there, but we can't explain what it is. Echo radar and other equipment registered readings, but gave no clue as to the nature of these objects. It was also stated that the alleged fragments of the rockets were nothing or more than ordinary coke or slag. So that's all they could find in these crash.
That's really interesting.
It just seems weird that there wouldn't be debris that'd just be like melted, just nothing.
Like if it was a meteor, there should be something. Even if it was a man-made object or not of this earth, surely something would be left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd really think there would. Yeah.
So, initially, this is the first sort of theory. It was initially thought in 1946 that these objects originated from the former German rocket facility at Peenemünde and were long-range tests by the Soviets of the captured German V-1 and V-2 missiles. Or perhaps another form of early cruise-type missile which could explain the manoeuvrability of the objects. This prompted the Swedish army to issue a directive stating newspapers were not to report any exact locations of the ghost rocket sightings, or any information regarding direction or speed of the objects. They reasoned this information was vital for evaluation purposes to the nations assumed to be performing the tests. However, the Soviet origins theory was researched by Swedish, British and US military investigators, and as no recognisable rocket fragments were ever recovered, and some of the witness behaviours didn't quite match the theory, they can't put any weight behind this decision that it was probably the Soviets. They can't say for sure. So that's theory number one. So the next is, this is where it gets a bit interesting because other countries start to step into the fray. So in August 1946, Swedish Lieutenant Lennart Neckman of the Defence Staff's Air Division saw something that was, and I quote, without a doubt, a rocket projectile. The New York Times reported that the Undersecretary of State, Dean Acheson, was very much interested in the ghost rocket reports, as was the US Army Air Force's intelligence, as indicated non-publicly by later documents. Then, on August 20th, the Times reported that the two US experts on aerial warfare aviation, Legend General Jimmy Doolittle and General David Sarnoff, president of the RCA, which is the Radio Corporation of America, arrived in Stockholm ostensibly on private business and independently of each other. The official explanation was that Doolittle, who was now vice president of the Shell Oil Company, was inspecting a Shell branch offices in Europe, while Sarnoff, a former member of the General Dwight D. Eisenhower's London staff, was studying the market for radio equipment. However, the Times story indicated that the chief of Swedish Defence Staff made no secret that he was extremely interested in asking the two generals advice and, if possible, would place all available reports before them. Doolittle and Sarnoff were briefed that on several occasions the ghost rockets had been tracked on radar. Sarnoff was quoted by the New York Times on September 30th saying that he was, quote, convinced that the ghost bombs were no myth, but real missiles, end quote. So a bunch of US officials popped over there to try and find out what was going on, and they were pretty sure that it was some sort of missile test or some sort of man-made object. Now, on to the Swedish military's opinion.
Okay.
So, although the official opinion on by the Swedish and the US military remains unclear, they never officially stated what they thought. A top secret USAFE, United States Air Force Europe document from the 4th of November 1948 indicates that at least some of the investigators believed ghost rockets and later, in quotes, flying saucers had extraterrestrial origins. So I had a look at this document myself. So it was classified in 1966, I believe. But supposedly it was declassified in 1997. And I've had a good look around just to try and make sure what I'm giving people is the truth. Unfortunately, I couldn't find this on any government sites, and the only place I could find it quoted was in a 2007 book on UFOs. So I'm going to suggest that we take this bit with a pinch of salt.
Okay.
For some time, we have been concerned by the recurring reports on flying saucers. They periodically continue to pop up during the last week. One was observed hovering over Neuberg Air Base for about 30 minutes. They have been reported by so many sources and from such a variety of places that we are convinced that they cannot be disregarded and must be explained on some basis which is perhaps slightly beyond the scope of our present intelligence thinking. When officers of this directorate recently visited the Swedish Air Force Intelligence Service, this question was put to the Swedish. Their answer was that some reliable and fully technically qualified people who have reached the conclusion that these phenomena are obviously a result of a high technical skill, which cannot be credited to any presently known culture on Earth. They are therefore assuming that these objects originate from some previously unknown or unidentified technology, possibly outside of Earth. One of these objects was observed by a Swedish technical expert near his home on the edge of a lake. The object crashed or landed in the lake, and he carefully noted its azimuth, which is I believe, a navigational term for 3D space. From his point of observation, Swedish intelligence was sufficiently confident in his observation that a naval salvage team was sent to the lake. Operations were underway during the visit, and US AFE officers were present. Divers had discovered a previously uncharted crater on the floor of the lake. No further information is available, but we have been promised knowledge of the results. In their opinion, the observation was reliable, and they believe that the depression on the floor of the lake, which did not appear on current hydrographic charts, was in fact caused by a, quote, flying saucer. So yeah, that's from a supposedly released government document.
Okay, but you couldn't find the document itself.
No, so I'm gonna have to promise everybody listening now that I'm gonna try and do a bit more deep research, because I managed to find it on various sites, but I could never find it on an official government site. But I'm not sure how much restriction is on these pieces of information.
Because they don't want you to know something, Oscar.
Exactly. So the location I did manage to find that this document was in, at least, was a book called Need to Know by Timothy Good, which was published in 2007. And I had a quick look at the reviews, and I had a quick look at the Wikipedia page on Tim Good, and supposedly he is quite well known for writing books about UFOlogy and the belief that aliens are out there. But there's nobody questions the content of his books, just the leaps he takes from the logic. So he believes that this proves that aliens exist.
Okay.
So I'm not there yet. Finally, there was actually some input given to us by the Greeks as well. as similar objects were also reported by British Army units in above Greece, Italy, and Belgium and Portugal. In an interview on September the 5th, 1946, the Greek Prime Minister Konstantinos Saldaris reported a number of projectiles had been seen over Macedonia and Thessaloniki on September the 1st. The Greek government also conducted their own investigation with their lead physicist, Dr. Pavlos Santorini. And it took me a while to find some information about this guy as well. So, supposedly, he was on the team for the first, helping build parts for the first atomic bomb, and he was on the team for the first proximity fuse. So, surprisingly, it's quite hard to find some information about the Manhattan Project and all the various scientists who worked on it.
Yeah.
In a 1967 lecture to the Greek Astronomical Society, which was broadcast over radio, Dr. Santorini first publicly revealed, and I quote, "We soon established that they were not missiles, but before we could do any more, the army, after conferring with foreign officials, ordered the investigations stopped. Foreign scientists flew over to Greece for secret talks with me." Later on, he said that the secrecy was invoked because officials were afraid to admit of a superior technology against which we have, quote, "no possibility of defense," end quote.
Whoa.
So, that's what I've learnt in my mass book report. I did quite a lot of reading. I haven't reached a conclusion myself, and as I've been watching a lot of X-Files recently, I'm not sure where to lie. On one hand, I think saying flying saucers and aliens is a perfect cover-up for missile tests and various other things. But on the other side, if it was aliens, then wouldn't you want to cover that up just as much?
Yeah. It's like, if it was aliens, what would it look like? It would probably look like someone trying to cover up a super advanced missile test.
So, what are your thoughts?
Do you think the truth is out there?
Yeah. I appreciate, this is basically a case study. People can say, oh, well, aliens, UFOs. But to actually get a specific case, like, a set of examples and that, and then look at what is official bodies kind of reviewing the evidence. And I know, obviously, if you've got an individual, even if they're from the intelligence community or something, if they believe in aliens, they're probably going to, sort of, like you said, the leaps in logic is really what I would have an issue with. But all the stuff that they've confirmed as fact, super interesting. What the hell was going on?
Yeah.
I like it.
Pretty wacky nunu, to be honest.
Wacky nunu.
I very much resonate with what you said before, where it's like, it's either one is a really good excuse for the other, or the other is a really good excuse for the other. It would be really, really hard to kind of come to a definitive answer. But I really like the depth you went through with that one. Like, I like that there was a lot of reported stuff. I enjoyed that a lot. Thank you, Oscar.
I'm interested to know where these official documents have gone.
I'll send you some links later on, and maybe you can see if you can find anything more.
You got to make sure to turn on your VPN. FBI man's watching.
As always, our sources will be in the episode description.
Yeah, so have a look yourself. See what you think.
All right, let me spin that wheel.
Let's do this.
Amber, you're up.
Oh my god. Okay. I did enjoy doing my one. I felt very not motivated this week, but when I finally started reading about it, my fingers, they just started typing, and here we are. So, I'd like you to join me now and try and put yourself in the shoes of an intrepid archaeologist in the western United States. Your trek has taken you south of the Great Basin to the very southernmost part of Nevada. You take a long swig of your canteen and shield your eyes from the sun. You'll be at the site soon enough, just another few hundred meters, and you'll be standing face to face with one of the last pieces of ancestral Puebloan culture from nearly 2,000 years ago. The ancestral Puebloans, such an iconic culture, responsible for the cliffside palace, buildings seemingly carved from the very cliff face they reside upon. But you aren't here for something so grandiose, no. You're here for something much more subtle. As you crest over the rise, you see the site in question. Not more than some unassuming rocks. But look closer. There's something on those rocks. As you approach, you see the details come into view. On the darkened rocks, you can see lighter marks, scrapes along the surface, creating shapes. Shapes of beasts, of men, and of many a situation one might find to be commonplace were they a member of the ancestral Puebloan settlement here. These petroglyphs are beautiful, remarkable, and important. They are a persevering account of life 2,000 years ago, a testament to man's need for artistic expression, but most of all, they could be the key to finding life on Mars. So my question is this. What do ancient Native American petroglyphs and Martian life forms have in common? No takers?
Pass.
No, I've got nothing.
Okay, well, it all comes down to the canvas used for the artwork. Let me explain. So, the darker surface of the rock is what's chiseled away to create these petroglyphs. So it's not like they're painting on top of the rock. They're chiseling the top layer away. But the darker surface might not be natural. It's what we call desert varnish. Desert varnish is a dark coating found on exposed rock in arid environments. The layer is around 1 micrometer thick, that's 1/1000th of a millimeter in English, and shows signs of layering on the nanometer scale. So that's 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter. Don't worry, I've done the calculations for you. So, a thin coating seemingly made up of many, many very thin layers. But why should you care? Well, for one, it's a fantastic place for microbes to become fossilized, which is particularly cool since we've seen desert varnish on the rocks on Mars. The varnish on Mars could contain evidence of any microbial life that may have existed back in Mars's wet and generally more habitable period. I mean, as cool as that may be, what drew me to this topic is that desert varnish is a potential candidate for a shadow biosphere. So I know that sounds ominous, but it's really quite cool. The Shadow Biosphere is a hypothetical microbial biosphere here on Earth that uses radically different biochemical and molecular processes than that of all other known life forms. An ecosystem thus far unknown to us. An ecosystem of organisms with no evolutionary connection to any other life on Earth. An ecosystem of life forms that may have arisen entirely separately from our life. The reason why we might not have found this shadow biosphere yet is because we focus on known biochemical processes and products when we're searching for microbes. We've got little tests, we've got petri dishes, all that sort of stuff. Every time we're trying to culture microbes or find evidence of microbes, we focus on known biochemical processes and products. It's like if everything you owned was made out of metal, everything in your house was made of metal, you were made of metal, everything was made out of metal, and you were trying to find a wooden spoon with a metal detector. Like, you've just had such a good run with the metal detector, surely it can find anything, because seemingly everything's made of metal. But if it's not made of metal, how would your tools to find metal work in finding this? So, hypotheses about how we might have missed these microbes focus on the differences to known life that would make them invisible to our detection methods. If they had a lack of ribosomes, different amino acids, a left-handed DNA spiral, different DNA base pairs, and even an arsenic backbone to the DNA molecule have all been posed as features of these shadow life forms. So, how do you find something that you kind of don't know what it is? You just know that it's different. Well, you look for what it leaves behind. Desert Varnish. The composition of Desert Varnish has been noted as having a manganese content 50 to 60 times higher than in the Earth's crust, and indeed in other rocks. We don't know for certain how the Varnishes form, or why they have the composition that they do, and as much as I would like to offer you compelling evidence for terrestrial alien life, we don't know why. Just because we don't know doesn't mean it's the mystery life form, It's kind of like, well, if we don't, I guess like the alien thing, like, if you believe that this is the Shadow Biosphere, then it looks very compelling. If you believe that it's not, then it doesn't. But, it could be Shadow Biosphere. In any case, the Varnish that we found on Mars rocks, so the same thing that we found out there on Mars, could be damning evidence for or against, depending on what we find trapped within that desert Varnish on Mars. If the Varnish there shows signs of microbial fossils, not only would it bolster the proposal of a shadow biosphere here on Earth, but, obviously it would confirm that there was life on Mars as well. Even further to that point, we would then know that life takes other forms than what we're used to. And we would know what to look for if we wanted to find it. Hell, if life arose here on Earth more than once, and on Mars, then how common is it out there in the universe? Counter to that though, if there's no sign, no trace of any microbes on Mars, if the planet is completely sterile, then that desert Varnish must be an entirely inorganic process that makes it occur. If there's absolutely no sign at all of any microbes, no matter how closely we look, it means that there's just no organic influence happening in the creation of it. It's just chemical. It's a chemical reaction of some sort. In which case, I guess it's back to square one for the Shadow Biosphere theory, and then also, pretty sad to find that Mars was just sterile. But, there still is this hypothesis that when we go out to Mars and we go, right, let's grab a bit of dust, whack it in this Petri dish, nothing grows, but hey, maybe it doesn't like the Petri dish. Maybe there's another way that you could grow it. Maybe it has got a left-handed DNA spiral. I remember mentioning this, I think it was the other week when we were just chatting, that pretty much all life on Earth has got a right-handed DNA helix, double helix. And that's simply because if a left-handed DNA double helix arose, then the right-handed DNA would all be creating this ecosystem where if you're a right-handed DNA organism and you eat something that's a right-handed DNA organism, you can just take up all the bits that made up their DNA and all that sort of stuff. If they use the same amino acids as you, you can just steal them. Once you've eaten them, you can just take it off them. Whereas if I was a right-handed DNA organism, which I am, and then if I ate a left-handed DNA plant, it would be as though I had taken no nutrition from it at all, because all the pieces that make up that organism don't match with what I've got. So it would just pass through me. My body is built to find right-handed stuff, certain amino acids, things like that, and then take them in. That's how you get nutrients from food. If it didn't even have the same amino acids, it might make me sick, or at least I wouldn't derive any nutrients from it. So as soon as you say, right, I'm going to be right-handed, you guys be left-handed, you're now stuck to your side of the ecosystem. So if, for whatever reason, the right-handed ecosystem got some kind of benefit, like, they evolved a little bit, they were a little bit more efficient at, taking in minerals or something like that, immediately now there's this like selection pressure to be right-handed, because if you're in that group, it's getting bigger and bigger because it's a bit more successful. So if you're a left-handed organism, your ecosystem is shrinking and you're, sort of pool of food and things like that is shrinking. And it would get to a point where you just can't find any food because everything's right-handed all around you. And you just get selected against and off you go. You're just done. At least that's how, natural selection seems to work with animals and other organisms. But, there could always be little pockets of different environments. I know they've got the in Antarctica, there's like a bleeding, there's a cliff face where there's just red gushing out of the ice. Have either of you seen that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just because inside the ice, there was a pocket where there was an ecosystem going on, but there was no oxygen because it was so deep under the ice. So all the, sort of like oxygen using microbes all died. And what it was left with was anaerobic microbes. So things that thrive without oxygen. Now, needless to say, these things don't get on very well on the surface. But they had their own little pocket, their own little ecosystem. So they just went to town, and it turns out they're all very dark red, which is just... there's nothing sinister going on about the bleeding ice caps. I know we're killing the planet, but this has got nothing to do with it.
Oh boy.
So yeah, there could be pockets where there's left-handed DNA going on, or, any other kind of shadow biosphere. And by that I just mean something that doesn't follow the same rules as our life. But yeah, I mean, the answer for the shadow biosphere theory, and indeed life outside of Earth, is out there on Mars. And, we'll have those answers, possibly in our lifetime as well. If they send up a rover with newer techniques and tools and things, we could be checking for these microbes.
A strange shadow biosphere with left-handed DNA.
Yeah, left-handed shadow life forms. It's crazy. Nothing against left-handed people, you guys are all good. But yeah, possibly we'll have the answer for the shadow biosphere in our lifetime. Or it's going to be relegated to the sidelines once the James Webb Space Telescope is up and running. I mean, that thing can look through the atmosphere of exoplanets and detect traces of life like ours. So,
wow.
It's going to be great, but it is really going to set us on a track of looking for things that we know and that we are similar to. But yeah, so what do Native American petroglyphs and Martian life forms have in common? Desert varnish, maybe.
Interesting.
So there you go. I had a lot of fun reading about that. Strangely, in my head, I thought it went a lot deeper than that. I thought they had a lot more compelling evidence for the shadow biosphere, but it really is just a hypothesis at this point. But very interesting. And the fact that we could have answers about life on Mars within our lifetime is a very cool prospect.
That is a very cool prospect.
So there you have it.
All right. I guess that just leaves me then, doesn't it?
Oh, it does indeed.
Alrighty. Well, unsurprisingly, I am back once again, like the Renegade Master. Now, back once again with the Seven Wonders Saga. This week, I'm going to be ranting and randomly gesticulating about the statue of Zeus at Olympia.
Okay. I know very little about this one, so it's be interesting.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun researching it, actually, because this is another one where I also similarly didn't really know much about. It's also probably the most concise one I've come out with so far, which is always nice. So what do we know? Well, it was a big old statue of a god. Roughly 41 foot, or 12.4 meters, or if I'm being really scientific, just over 7 Oscars when rounded.
Only?
Oh, wow.
So, it's not the biggest one we've covered by comparison. It's still pretty big, not denying that. But compared to some of the others, it's not the biggest.
Come on, it's not a competition. Come on.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Although it might be, but I'll get back to that in a second.
Oh.
Do you count the mountain that it's on as well, or is that not fair?
It's
cheating.
not on a mountain for starters. So it was erected in Olympia, where they used to hold the Olympics. The place was actually dedicated to Zeus himself, which, having some relation to the gods makes sense given the name Olympia. It's very similar to Olympus, which is famous for having gods reside atop. That was like the home of the gods.
Yeah.
That being said, it's absolutely nowhere near Mount Olympus.
Oh.
So, that's just one thing. Little tidbit as well. No copy in marble or bronze has actually survived of the statue. This being said, though, there are several approximations on, various coins and in gems and in other relics from the time, if you get me.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's rich mental picture time, folks. So
Alright.
if everyone currently listening could close their eyes, if possible, and safe.
I'm ready.
So now, I would like you to picture this, if you would. A large ivory masculine figure seated upon a cedarwood throne adorned in gold, ivory, ebony, precious gems, and various paintings. In the statue's left hand stood a firm, long, golden scepter, topped with an ornate eagle figurine, its details picked out in brilliant silver. In the right hand rests a small statue of Nike, the goddess of victory. The legs are adorned with robes of gilded glass, featuring intricate, detailed compositions of animals and lilies, and the head is crowned in a wreath. Its feet are also wearing golden sandals, and below them a footstool detailed with the Amazonomancy, or Amazon battle, depicting the mythical battles between the ancient Greeks and the Amazons. The statue itself is enclosed in a traditional Greek open-fronted shrine, giant stone columns framing the figure. You can open your eyes now.
Oh, I don't want to. That was beautiful.
As with last week, the mental picture I write up is, constructed out of relics and artistic interpretations. So always do take that bit with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
But I'm of the ones I've gone with, that one seemed pretty reputable.
That was amazing about gilded glass robes.
Yeah,
That's fantastic if that was true.
Yeah. Well, what it was made of seems to not be up for much debate. I've managed to see a few sources. Well, the sources I looked at did all mention the same materials.
Wow. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is a wonder. So, but they've used a really, really wide array of things to make it with.
Yeah.
So they actually built the statue, pardon me, using plates and panels atop a wooden framework. So it's not, solid through and through in these precious materials. It's actually plated.
Okay.
But I thought that was very, very cool, though. Like, there was I couldn't quite fit it into the mental picture, but the idea that there is, a large wooden frame underneath.
Yeah.
So, remember Pausanias? Mentioned him a week or two ago. Might have mentioned him a couple times, actually.
Possibly.
Yeah, he was a Greek traveller and geographer of the 2nd century. And let me read to you a quote from his work, which was titled The Description of Greece. The god sits atop a throne, and he is made of gold and ivory. On his head lies a garland, which is a copy of olive shoots. In his right hand he carries a victory, brackets, Nike, which, like the statue, is of ivory and gold. She wears a ribbon on her head, a garland. In the left hand of the god is a scepter, ornamented with every kind of metal, and the bird sitting on the scepter is the eagle. The sandals of the god are of gold, as is likewise his robe. On the robe are embroidered figures of animals and the flowers of the lily. The throne is adorned with gold and with jewels, to say nothing of ebony and ivory. Upon it are painted figures and wrought images. So I thought that was worth chucking in there, just 'cause it's a brief description from someone, back in time.
Yeah.
So let me give you a little bit of context for this statue instead of just throwing facts at you. So it was commissioned roughly in the latter half of the 5th century BC by the Eleans, who were the custodians of the games, and it was wanted for their temple of Zeus, because essentially it was a dick measuring contest. They wanted to make the Athenians jealous, to which they approached Phidias, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who I have actually mentioned previously. How about a little trivia time?
Oh boy!
So, Phidias was a very well-known sculptor, painter, and architect, or I guess still is, because we know that. But however you word that, you get what I'm going for. And he crafted some great works. One example being the Parthenon, which is a very famous temple. It's one that I think we typically use as what would a Greek temple look like? Oh, we think of the Parthenon because it's a very big sort of landmark. And it was quite the feat. And he was an excellent choice for this because it was going to take hundreds of craftsmen and years to actually do it. So his experience actually is what kind of got him the job in a lot of ways. Now, let me mention very quickly another one of his works, which I'm going to call the Parthenon marbles, which I think have wrongly also been called the Elgin marbles. Oh, get ready, folks, because this is probably gonna make some folks mad because it made me mad.
Okay.
So the 7th Earl of Elgin stole these marbles from the Parthenon. He said he didn't. However, there's no proof of the permission he supposedly had, despite there being extensive archives from the time. And also, if the permission had been given, it was by the Ottoman Empire, which were occupying Greece at the time. And let's be honest, this is old rich British guy, so do we really trust him not to just take what he wants?
Right.
Yeah. They're on display in the British Museum. I have been lucky enough to see them, although I don't support them being there, but I was taken there when I was much younger and saw them. They are absolutely breathtaking. They are possibly one of the most beautiful things I have seen.
Wow.
Like, it is quite the miracle. Like, you'd look at them and you would think, how the hell does a person make that? And there are all these ornate carved depictions which have like centaurs and various other figures. And it truly is gorgeous, and I'd highly recommend looking it up if you've never seen them. Just make sure not to give the British Museum any money, because Greece have asked for them back multiple times. Because
oh man, I'm getting angry. D, you were right.
Yeah, Greece have asked for them back multiple times because they belong to Greece, only for the museum to say no. So that sucks.
Can I be honest for a sec?
Yeah.
When you mentioned Elgin marbles, and you've mentioned them before today to me briefly, I was picturing marbles as in you'd play with as a kid. I was thinking of these, like, maybe these fantastic spherical gems, these amazing... I've just Googled it now as you've been talking about it, and
they're
I
like
realised
reliefs.
that I was wrong. I was very wrong. They look fantastic. Oh boy.
They wouldn't roll if you tried to throw them.
But yeah, boo the British Library, because they are perpetuating some idiot douchebag who I will not repeat the name of, who effectively stole them.
Yeah, that's something the English are really known for. And it is something that we shouldn't be proud of. And the fact
I'm
is...
so not proud. I'm disgusted by it. That's why I figured I'd bring it up on the podcast.
This isn't history. We're not giving them back today.
Yeah, I don't... That's the bit I don't understand, because just not to go on too much of a tangent or a rant, there have literally been third parties, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, who have said, look, we'll mediate this, we'll mediate giving them back, to which the British Museum turn around and go, oh no, we're not a country, we're a board of directors. And it's like, you're just being deliberately obtuse.
Oh, get in the bin. Give them back their cultural heritage.
Literally, though. It's not... You would think it wouldn't be that hard, would you?
Goodness.
But yeah, shifting us back on topic. When asked what inspired him, Phidias answered that he portrayed Zeus according to Book 1 of Homer's Iliad, which is an ancient Greek epic. And, to quote, he spoke the son of Kronos and nodded his head with dark brows, and the immortality anointed hair of the great god swept from his divine head, and all Olympus was shaken. And that's the kind of quote he used to kind of create this godlike statue.
Wow.
According to Pausanias even, when the image was finished, sorry, let me quote this properly. When the image was quite finished, Phidias prayed the god to show by a sign whether the work was to his liking. Immediately runs the legend, a thunderbolt fell on that part of the floor, where down to the present day the bronze jar stood to cover the place. Which I thought was a cool story.
Cool story, bro.
So, you've heard from the man who built it. What does history have to say? Well, Strabo, remember him? The Greek geographer, philosopher, and historian. I think I've mentioned him in previous episodes.
His full name's actually Strawberry.
So he was quoted saying, it seems that if Zeus were to stand up, he would unroof the temple. Pausanias recounts, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the statue was constantly being coated in olive oil to counter the damage to the ivory caused by the marshiness of the area, and that the floor in front of the statue was paved with black tiles surrounded by a rim of marble to contain the oil, which also doubled as a reflecting pool, supposedly doubling the height of the statue.
I like the idea that they just go and like oil him up every day.
God damn it, Amber, because the next thing I had written down was, sidebar, I know this is really bad, but whenever I mention that quote, I get the horribly homoerotic mental image of people just lathering this statue in oil.
Oh.
But that's just my big gay brain.
Oh, and you know, it'll be a solid statue, but I can imagine there's just a little bit of flex in his biceps as I oiled him up.
Right, big gay brains aside. Livy, a Roman historian, claims that a Roman general, namely Aemilius Paulus, saw the statue and, to quote, was moved to his soul as if he had seen the god in person. And lastly, for my historical accounts segment, Dio Chrysostom, a 1st century AD Greek orator, declared a single glimpse of the statue would make a man forget all his earthly troubles.
It will make any man forget his wife.
Any thoughts thus far, friendos?
I know at the start I was like, it's not a competition, but this statue is winning.
You got anything to say, Oscar?
Big statue, it's big. I'm wondering, because earlier you mentioned that there was depictions of the battles between the Greeks and the Amazons. And I think in your previous one about the Temple of Artemis, Artemis sheltered the Amazons.
Yep.
So is there some sort of beef between, Zeus and Artemis, or?
You talking about god beef?
Yeah, I mean, I know there was a lot.
I was going to say, it's the Greek gods. There is undoubtedly beef, because there's always beef, because it's the Greek gods. But god beef, yeah. So, what happened to it? Where is it now? Why isn't it still knocking around? It sounds pretty bomb. Well, according to Roman historian Suetonius, the emperor, Caligula, gave orders, and I quote, that such statues of the gods as were especially famous for their sanctity or their artistic merit, including that of Jupiter at Olympia, should be brought from Greece in order to remove their heads and put his own in their place.
God.
Wow.
Because, Caligula, not the least bit unhinged, except, for famously being quite unhinged. He was assassinated before he could make good on that.
Fantastic.
Thank God.
Great.
Well, it's not fantastic he was killed, but,
it is a little bit.
Well, it is a little bit. The man was insane. I don't like anyone getting killed, but Caligula was pretty bad.
You can't pull the too soon card with, ancient Greece.
Put it this way, Caligula definitely should not have been in power by the sounds of things.
Well, so shouldn't a lot of people.
Yeah. Apparently, his death was foretold by the statue, which I quote, suddenly uttered such a peal of laughter that the scaffolding collapsed and the workmen took to their heels. Which is doubtful, but incredibly cool.
Yeah.
In 391 AD, Roman Emperor Theodosius the First banned participation in pagan cults and closed the temples. Screw that guy. So the sanctuary where the statue was located just fell into disuse. Which sucks, because what the hell, banning someone's faith? That's kind of really not cool.
Right.
So no one was oiling the statue?
Likely not, no. And that's a good point. I hadn't previously considered.
Oh no.
Oh, it was getting chapped.
So 11th century Byzantine historian Georgios records that it was carried off to Constantinople, where it was destroyed in the Great Fire of the Palace of Lausus in 475 AD. Or it went down with the temple in a fire that severely damaged the temple in 425 AD. So either carted off and then got caught in a fire, or just got caught in a fire. Either way, we know it's gone.
Damn.
Which is a big shame.
Oh.
However, I do have this tidbit, which is from Lucian of Samosata, who this was from the 2nd century. He was an Assyrian novelist, satirist, and rhetorician, which is the art of persuasion. Referenced the statue in one of his works, namely Timon, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and to quote, "They have laid hands on your person at Olympia, my lord high thunderer, and you had not the energy to wake the dogs or call in the neighbours. Surely they might have come to the rescue and caught the fellows before they had finished packing up the loot." So yeah, that was the statue of Zeus. Any closing remarks, my friends?
I like how one of the statements that you brought was by Suetonius, and I was like, I really relate with that guy recently because it's really hot. Just a little pun for you there.
I as far as wonders go on the ones we've covered, I think that's one of the ones I'd like to see. But they're all on the I'd like to see them list.
Well, yeah, they're the 7 ancient wonders of the world.
Yeah, but supposedly I can only really see one of them, and the others are like maybe kind of there, maybe they're just not there at all.
Yeah.
Maybe there's very little left.
Yeah.
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 Although, I was thinking just in terms of size, if you were to ask this ancient wonder, how many Oscars could it take in a fight? It would say about 7.
I've just got the mental picture of a giant Zeus statue fighting Oscar.
You're just coming at him with loads of olive oil. Like, I'm going to oil you.
Fighting in the oil pool. Oh boy.
So, statue of Zeus covered. If no one's got anything more to say, I'm going to shift us along onto our next segment, which is stuff that we like, where we talk about something we have enjoyed between recordings. See, it's here this week. I remembered, it's in the script. I didn't totally forget about it last week. That didn't happen. It totally did. I'm ashamed.
Don't worry, I have totally forgotten about it.
Well, don't worry, because I was thinking I could start us off, because I always pre-write my bit for this segment.
Okay.
So this week, I thought I'd mention Fallout 3, which is... I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say this, but it's an old Bethesda RPG. Why do I have to say old? Because it's 12 years old, despite the fact I remember that game coming out.
Oh, goodness gracious me.
And that really does make me start to question my mortality, so I have no idea how it makes you two feel, because I'm younger than the pair of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But glazing over, our crippling realization of our finite time on this mortal coil, it's set in an alternate timeline in post-apocalyptic DC, so not that alternate timeline. You get to wander a world ravaged by the horrors of nuclear war, which sounds horrific because, well, it is. But along the way, you also see the best and worst of humanity, and I feel it's a really enduring experience. It's got a nice amount of zaniness to kind of help it not feel too severe. And it's got everything from aliens to robots to giant mutated lizards. So, quite good variety in it there. Very powerful aesthetic, too.
Yeah.
This time around, we've been playing with a fair few mods installed, which the community are very awesome for making and writing so many troubleshooting guides, because, oh lord, did we have some problems. But honestly, I think it's made me feel like we've earned the game a bit more.
It is part of the mod experience, that.
Yeah, but yeah. So I did want a little thank for the community there. Honestly, though, what's made it such a fun experience this time for me, and I hope Oscar, is that Oscar's played the game a lot more than me and knows much more than me about the game.
I had a problem.
A lot of my memory is very fuzzy from playing it like roughly 8 years ago, and I didn't play through it a lot. Played through it enough to, like it and love it as a game, just hadn't really come back to it. So Oscar has been my post-apocalyptic guide to the capital wasteland of alternative timeline America, which has been really fun, actually. So thank you to both Fallout, the mod community, and you, Oscar.
Oh, no problem. It's, you know what? Because I can never play Fallout again without knowing the knowledge I know, but I can vicariously relive moments by getting somebody who hasn't done things to do those things.
Yeah.
And watching.
Yeah.
And thank you for letting me parasite onto your experience thing.
No worries. And any time, Brenda. Anytime.
I like that. At least, Oscar, you've got a job lined up for when the bombs drop. Just a post-apocalyptic tour guide.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
That's where civilization used to be. Over there, and over there, and over there.
So, who's going to talk next?
Do you want to, Ember, or shall I?
Well, I've got a quick one. So this will be a recommendation for people to go and watch because it's, me talking about it's not really going to do anything. But it's basically a YouTube channel which I had seen a couple videos from, and they started popping up on my recommended, and I just realised I love all these videos. The channel's called Phenomonauts. And they basically do source filmmaker videos, but they really have their sort of style, and it's usually a song from a game or something like that, and then they animate a character doing stuff to the music. So there's like one of them where he's got ducks for shoes and he's like dancing and everyone's watching him and he's like doing all these like tap dancing moves. Oh, there's another one where it's like a bird and he's like tweeting because he's sad he doesn't have a best friend, and then another bird comes along and starts being his best friend. And really, it would be pointless to try and describe the contents of these videos because they are just weird, but they're fantastic and they're quite short as well, so you can just quickly ram a couple of those in for a little bit of free serotonin. Anonymous, go watch it.
Need to check that out.
Ooh. Okay.
How about you, Oz?
You know what? I'm gonna give a shout out to Zad's, the takeaway place in Manchester.
Oh my God, Zad's!
We ordered from Zad's the other day. What really makes them unique is that the whole menu is vegan, I believe. Right?
Yes.
Dave? The whole menu is vegan. So no matter what people are, what they want to eat. I mean, I think it dawned on me when you were looking at the menu and taking a wild day and you realised that you did have a selection.
Oh, I got very excited.
I know, because if I was a vegetarian, I'd never thought about this. I'd go into a place and I'd go, what can I actually have from this menu? And realise I'd be quite limited. And although I do still sometimes eat of the meat, you know what? There's nothing wrong with a good takeaway. And the fact that everything on the menu was sort of animal friendly and delicious just means that I don't have to think about too much. I can just sit down with my food, shove it in my face, and then feel really full for the next couple of hours.
Fantastic.
Can I tag on to that one if that's okay?
Yeah, go on.
It's just you raise a very so like I fully understand with being vegetarian I'm going to have limited options when I leave the house because it's not what the majority goes for, and I'm totally cool with that. Like I get that. I get that the demand isn't often there. That's cool. But I will say if I ever see a full menu where I can have anything on it, I am going to get very giddy because it's one thing that makes me laugh because I've normally only got 2 or 3 options to pick from, so it takes me very short period of time to order in a lot of places. So to just be dumbstruck by a menu, because I've had from Zad's before, but this was the only time where I'd actually sat down and gone, oh my God, I can have anything. So yeah, thumbs up for Zad's, big thumbs up.
Yeah.
Anyone in Manchester, order from Zad's, it's a good time. They also came in really good time too, I think.
Oh yeah.
So, with that, I think that's us, and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. If you want to hear more of our lovely voices, you can find our other podcast, The Trialogue, where the 3 of us talk about, everything from big questions like which leader do we take the aliens to, all the way to, which 2 animals would you fuse together to make some sort of strange output. You can find that in all the same places you would find this, except from YouTube. And, that just comes out when we're not doing this. Lastly, we would love to thank everyone for tuning in. Any topic suggestions or feedback, do drop us a comment or email us on phenomenautspodcast@gmail.com. We can even give you a shout out if you'd like. And with that, that's peace out, folks, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Bye!
Bye!
Goodbye.